Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to a next episode of The Challenge We Face with Quacy Smith. I am your host, Kathleen Harris, and welcome, Quacy.
Hi, good to be here again
Excellent.
on the hot seat, I should say.
Always, always.
Right.
So today we're going to tackle a subject matter that is very near and dear to a lot of our constituents in District 9, Congressional District 9. And this is a hot topic on the campaign trail. We're going to discuss retirement and Social Security. And data shows that the 65 plus age block is our largest constituency. And so we really need to, hear from you about your thoughts on these topics. And it's a large area, but we can sort of break this down as we go. So where do you want to start?
Sure. Well, first of all, obviously, thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast again.
This is your podcast.
I appreciate being here. It's always great. And, of course, to the team that makes this happen and to all of the folks, the hundreds and hundreds of people that view this podcast, I'm really, really grateful. You never take for granted that people will sit around and listen to what you have to say or read it on the website. And so I'm very grateful for that. Somebody said, I don't know who it was, but if you want to be successful in life, do something that's worth writing about or worth somebody reading about. And I think, and so I'm grateful to all of the listeners and viewers. Social Security and retirement. This is one of those things that when contemplating even this run for office, this is one of those things that keep me up at night. It keeps me up at night because I'm close to 40 now.
Oh, what do you say? Shipping and handling?
28 plus shipping and handling. But I'm close to 40, probably closer to 50. Right. Well, actually closer to 50. And, you start to see things change. My mother, obviously retirement age and noticing some of my family members are getting to that age. I'll be in that bucket sometime soon. And I've oftentimes wanted to make sure that we have comprehensive solutions to protect our seniors and the elderly. I think they should be treated well. And a part of treating them well deals with, obviously, the ability to make sure that they can afford health care, but also to make sure that their Social Security and retirement benefits, pensions, and the like are protected and insulated so that they can sustain themselves into their elderly years. One of the ideals, if you will, that I think is lost in this conversation, and it's not brought up enough in the framework of our politics, is that we must never forget that the ground that young folks like myself and folks that are younger than me stand on is the ground and the foundation that were laid by these folks that are older than us, that need our protection and our support. We're standing here because of sacrifices and investments that they made into our society and into this nation, into our communities, into our district, and we stand on their shoulders. Any young person that can say, oh, yeah, I'm doing fine, and the economy is doing da-da-da-da, all that stuff. Well, that's great, and we want you to do that. But the reason why you have it that good is because there were people that came before you that worked hard for less wages, longer hours, unfavorable circumstances, some of them in the face of discrimination, women being, prior to Lilly Ledbetter and frankly still today, being paid less than men. Yes. So there is an employment component, a struggle that these folks had to strive their way through so that younger generations, the generations behind them, could fare well. And it doesn't only deal with discrimination things and whatnot in the workplace that we're still working through but have made substantial progress on, but also economics. When I was growing up, I remember when minimum wage was $4.25 an hour, $4.25, that was minimum wage, 30 years ago. Look what it is now. $4.25 wasn't a lot of money then. We're still having a debate in some states about making the minimum wage $16 an hour. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine?
Amazing.
Can you imagine that? I mean, if you worked a 10-hour day, just think of this. If you worked a 10-hour day at minimum wage, if it was $16 an hour, you made $160 in a day. It takes half of that to fill up your gas tank.
That's right.
To go in most cities and states. You get what I'm saying? So in addressing the Social Security and retirement pension thing, you can't just address it in the vacuum of Social Security retirement. There is a pipeline that leads to the concern of Social Security retirement and protection. At the foundation of that pipeline is understanding that as we're making these considerations, these folks that are now retirement age and better have made tremendous sacrifices and contributions to our community and society that should not only be appreciated, but that should be safeguarded by our affirmative pursuit to ensure that these people are protected in their Social Security, retirement, pensions, benefits, and the like. I will also say, second to that, not only their contributions be respected and appreciated, but also to realize of that batch of seniors, retirement age folks, who's impacted the greatest. And the folks that are impacted the greatest by our inability to make sure that this is taken care of, it's not the Fortune 500 CEO executive retirees. It's not those that are millionaires and billionaires that are getting most of the tax reliefs and tax breaks and all. It's not those folks. It's not those folks. I'll even go as far as to say it's not even the folks that adequately maintained a small business and a nest egg and then sold the business and for a few $1 million and set a nest egg aside. Those folks aren't the ones that are being the most adversely affected by this. There's some effect to them. I don't want to make sure I'm understood that it's not saying that they're not affected at all, but the brunt of our inability to safeguard these Social Security and retirement and pension stuff, it's being borne by folks that were school teachers for 30 years, nurses, sanitation workers, folks that just manage the local McDonald's that these rich folks' kids eat at. It's these folks, the CNA that maybe wasn't a full RN that could make $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year, but that CNA, that certified nurse's assistant that never made any more than $30,000, $40,000 a year during that day. These are the folks that are being affected by this, and now they're on. It's that front office secretary that works down at the county office, the court clerk that's processing paperwork and deeds and divorce papers, the community service officer from your local police department, the firefighter that now retired and his pension is being drained.
Sure.
These are the people. It's not lawyers that has made millions of dollars, heart surgeons that are, most of these folks have themselves situated. And so if we're going to adequately address this, we have to give consideration to who this is impacting the most and the contributions that these folks have made to our society. And in viewing that, understand we have a duty to these people. Absolutely. We have a duty to these people. And I don't understand how any politician, any representative in Congress, particularly the one that we have now out in the 9th Congressional District, would vote in any manner to restrict, get rid of, drain, reduce funding to folks who've made sacrifices that you yourself today are still reaping the benefit of. I think it's unfair. I think if that is our posture as a nation, we are more flawed than we realize. I think this is a deeper issue. This is deeper than green and dollars and cents. This is a matter of principle. I was growing up, they told me you don't bite the hand that feeds you.
That's right.
Yes, these folks are 65, 70 years old, but let's not get it twisted. Pardon the casual language. We're biting the hands of those folks that have fed us. Every one of them that have told the line for 25, 30 years until they can reach retirement age. They've contributed to Social Security. You didn't ask them whether they wanted to contribute to Social. You took their money via tax withholding. Sure. They didn't get a choice.
Right.
But as a result of you taking their money through tax, you guaranteed them, you told them, you made a promise to them that they would receive certain benefits. And for you to vote to backtrack on that promise, that's not who we are as a nation. I don't care whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or an independent. That is not who we are as a nation. This country keeps its word, especially to its people that help build it. And so, and I know that comes across as a little forceful, but again, this keeps me up at night.
Sure.
Because I live in a community where, we have a lot of retirees around.
Yes.
And these folks should not have to pick between getting their prescriptions and buying groceries. You understand what I'm saying? This is a real issue right now. They shouldn't have to pick between getting their medication prescribed to them by their doctors and buying groceries.
Absolutely. And we hear that a lot on the campaign trail. And so I think, as you're saying, this debate or this conversation goes to sort of the heart of the nation and the sort of moral compass of the nation. And then that's where we get into voting records like Paul Gosar's. Yeah. And I know we're going to do a whole segment, a whole podcast episode on Paul Gosar's record, because as we go further into this campaign season, the prosecution of Paul Gosar's record will be a central piece of this campaign. So I'm going to set that aside for a moment, because I think it's important to let viewers and listeners know that if they are concerned about these issues, they really do need to look at the records of their representatives. Yes. And in this particular case, it's Paul Gosar's record that we're talking about. So let's just talk a little bit further about the sustainability of these benefits, because that is a question that always gets to the top of the list. When we're out on the campaign trail at town hall events. People are concerned. They are scared. They want to make sure that they're going to continue to receive these benefits, and they don't want to live with this anxiety on a regular basis that somehow they're going to be cut. So if you can speak to that a little bit further.
Excellent point. First of all, let me start with your last statement. There's a fear that there will be cut, but I want to be ironclad, period. Okay. Quacy Smith will never support a bill as a congressman that will cut any of the benefits out of our Social Security programs to the folks to whom these benefits have been guaranteed to. That is a moral issue. It's wrong. It's not right. These people have planned the latter years of their life based on a promise that this nation has made to them. And shame on any politician that will play bait and switch with the constituents or the citizens of this nation. So I will never support a bill that will cut benefits that have been promised to folks, i.e. Social Security, in this particular conversation. I won't support it. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not. We promised these folks this. They're going to get it. That turns me to sustainability. I'll make a broad statement and I'll hone in on one or two specific things. To keep that promise, I'll do whatever is necessary to make sure that Social Security is sustainable and that it is funded so that our promises that have been made to these folks will be upkept. A part of that long-term solvency and financial stability of the Social Security program is going to require us to explore measures that maintain and particularly that enhance the benefits. I think the benefits should be enhanced personally. So you got me on the side. I think we need to do more to make sure these folks are taken care of, but it has to start with funding it. A part of that is through payroll tax, increasing the income tax on the the cap on the taxable allowances that are allowed or taxable earnings that are allowed. You have to adjust these things. There is a matrix out there that by which you can create sustainable funding for these Social Security programs or other revenue-raising strategies that increase the income cap. Again, I will reject at all points that there are. See, if you increase it, and let me just talk specifically about this, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds in this, because I know we can talk about some other things, but if you increase the taxable earnings, the income cap on the taxable earnings, that of itself will enable us to raise more money to sustain this thing. And it's not only Social Security an issue while I'm out there, because this keeps popping in my mind. It's not just Social Security. It's retirement protections, period, because some folks have pensions and other things, you know, 401k, and we have to do that. A part of sustainability, for me, I will reject privatization of Social Security, period. This whole concept about diverting a portion of Social Security contributions into private investment. This is a government promise that we made, and the government needs to
uphold. Right.
Yeah,
and this is people's money. You don't want to play with their money.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't understand why they don't understand that. Without government protection, privatization, this stuff could run rampant.
That's right.
And they would have no control over fulfilling promises that we've made, the basic of protections. I don't understand why this is such a core issue, or folks like our congressman can't get it right. And he's in that age group. I just don't understand it for the life of me. So you're not going to get privatization out of me. I will always look at expanding the benefits to these folks, meaningful measures that expand it in a responsible way. Of course, we want to get rid of the deficits and all of that stuff, but particularly for vulnerable populations, those folks that I was just mentioning, folks like me that had small business and all of that stuff, that's going to be pretty much be all right when retirement, age comes. But there are a whole lot of folks like me that aren't going to be all right. And they're vulnerable because they have been the clerk at the public library for 30 years. And when they get 65, 70, they shouldn't have to worry about. Does that bother you as much as it bothers me?
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of those issues.
And I try not to get too worked up about this. But this is one of the challenges that we face. This unnerves me. This lady has been sitting at a library, or gentleman, for that matter, sitting at a library, handing out library books to kids and learners. And most librarians, they do it for years.
Absolutely.
This is their love. This is their passion. And they're critical to our society. And then they turn 68 years old and have to make a decision about whether to get their prescription or buy a loaf of bread.
It's shameful, really. I mean,
and the whole time, we've let... I'm not going to get a whole lot of help on it, but we'll let the NRA write $7, $8, $10, $15, $20 million worth of checks buying out political candidates.
It is incredible.
Something's wrong with us if that's the standard. And the Dems might not say, well, Dems might. This Dem will say it. Something is wrong with us if that is the standard by which we are treating the most vulnerable amongst us. We do all of this barking about protecting children and unborn children. What about the barking about protecting folks that have built this country, that have borne the burden of this country?
Our elders.
In the heat of the day. I know there's an illusion out there. The economy's in the trash can and all that. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the economy will always be in a place where it can do better. I think there are some things that we have to put in place. But despite all of that bombast and bluster and bloviation and rhetoric and all of that silliness, we have an obligation to people who have built this nation. And social security, the term means what it means.
That's right.
These folks in a social setting should be secure because of the contributions that they've made to the society from which our sociality comes from. If we can't do that, we have failed at the most rudimentary level
Yes.
as a country.
Agreed, 1,000%. And that's why it's really disturbing to hear these stories out on the campaign trail, because when, such a person took their job at, 25 or 30 years old, and with the idea that they would perform that job for 30 some years and then have that, security thereafter, and just the thought that it may not be there.
And retirement too. And I think, if I may, I think it's not just a Social Security, it's retirement security. We have to advance and support policies aimed at promoting retirement security underneath the same principle, initiative that encourage retirement savings, workplace pension plans, and again, Social Security. All of that has to be boiled in, because a lot of people that retire, they have a dynamic of all of that stuff. Retirement or pension protection. We're not going to let these banks gamble and stuff with your money, then all of a sudden what you thought you had is gone because, these folks are, playing hokey pokey with your money. We're not going to do that.
Right.
And it's up to the government and Congress to stop that. I think there should be expanded retirement or expanded access, I should say, to retirement savings, to make it more accessible to the person that works at Walmart, you get what I'm saying, to have a retirement plan that will meet the needs of what they're facing 20, 30, 40 years down the road after they're done. And we can do all of that stuff. A part of that, too, is addressing the income inequality. And think about this, because, and again, this is important because the two folks, the lawyer that retires and is 68 versus the registration clerk at the emergency room at Phoenix Children's Hospital that retires.
Sure.
Now, I will say this, and I can hear y'all in the back of the room talking. You said, well, if they should have went to school and they should have did this, and well, it was up to them. This is the profession that they chose. Let me just look right up here at me. Shame on you.
Right.
Shame on you. Something is wrong with your heart, because when I take my child to Phoenix Children's Hospital, I appreciate the young lady that's sitting there making $19 an hour, that's registering and making sure that my sick child can get through the triage process and back to see. And we need that person there.
For sure.
We've needed that person there as long as I've been alive, the 47 years that I've been on the planet, and we'll need them for the next 47 years. And we don't part ways. So we have an income inequality. The way you can help balance out is by expanding access to retirement, calculating in some variance and accessibility for the person that has to sit there and register children and their parents at Phoenix Children's Hospital, so that these folks are being treated in comparison to the lawyer that retires, that I don't have to think twice about going to paying for a meal or a prescription. But when you balance it all out, and when you address income equality, you address the pipeline so that when they are retired. So it's not just a one shot, just protect Social Security, don't cut it, you have to start at the base. The principle is we have a duty to these people.
Sure.
Let's address it from the place of income. Let's address it, access to retirement, protecting pensions, 401ks, all of that stuff, making sure that Social Security is secure. What needs to be secured right now is Social Security itself, and I am 159,000,000% on board with it. Financial regulations and consumer protections to make sure that folks aren't being bamboozled and hustled into crazy things. And then I think we also have to address long-term care. The long-term care process, policies that's associated with long-term care, health care, nursing homes, programs, so they can pay in advance. See how bright that is. For long-term care, we're going to get old.
A lot of people are getting priced out
of it because you
right.
can't you can't afford it. Look at the cost of housing now compared to when some of these folks retire. Folks are living longer nowadays than they were. And I'll say this, it's a personal thing. My 71-year-old mother could not afford to come to Phoenix, Arizona and buy a home.
Right.
Not on her Social Security. No, it's just not happening.
Sure.
So she's permanently restricted to renting, But come on, let's face it, the prices of rent now.
Astronomical.
President Biden, the economy is horrible. We need to vote out President Biden. That's not at the foot of the president. It wasn't at the foot of the previous president or the one before that. This is placed at the foot of Congress. Congress controls the purse.
The money.
Let's stop telling these people the lie. The economy is bad, it's the president's fault. No, it's not. If the economy is bad, it's something that Congress is not doing. And it ain't the president you need to send home. It's these representatives that won't do what's necessary to make sure that you, the people, we, the people, have a future. And put this stuff on the president's desk and let the president sign it. We should pass immediately a bill along some of these ideas. That's not cutting benefits. That's promoting retirement. That's expanding access. That's closing the income equality gap. That's going to lean over into education and making it more affordable so that more folks can become lawyers or doctors or go to school that are coming out of these lower income. If you raise the income level of everybody, you increase. It's a cyclical nature. Economists, I'm not an economist, but they'll
Sure. But these issues sort of bleed into each other, right? Because especially since the pandemic, we've seen prices explode, and particularly in the 9th District. I mean, well, in Buckeye, in Verrado, in Goodyear, in some of the areas that we're in constantly. I mean, home prices have doubled. Yep. And so that also impacts retirement, of course, because are these people going to be able to sustain the lifestyle that they have when they were working? And so that's another hot topic.
There's a particular, I have obviously real estate, looking at some real estate things, and there's a particular home up in Verrado, where folks that live in the 9th District, most of you know what Verrado is. I mean, this is the cream of the crop, not just because I live there, but, shout out to Verrado.
Right. I guess we should explain because folks are watching this podcast and listening on Spotify from around the country. Yeah. And so Verrado being a section of Buckeye, and this happens to be your hometown, your home area. And so, Yeah,
Verrado, it's up in the mountain, White Tanks Mountain. It's just beautiful all the way around. Anybody should want to live here in Verrado. But there's a particular area where there's some very, 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 very nice custom homes, acre lots, foothills. I mean, just absolutely gorgeous. These homes in 2015, 16 were selling $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. That's what they were being built for.
Sure.
Then, less than 10 years later, these homes are being sold $1.6, $7, $8 million. That is the impact. And that hadn't been couched to the last 4 years of this president's term. This has been an uphill climb.
Oh, yes.
Over a period of time. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. And then when you pile on top of it the back end of COVID-19 and then inflation, and I think the Fed has done a decent job in controlling that and raising interest rates to try to cool the economy off, all of that stuff. You've priced out seniors and you've priced out young folks out of college.
Yes.
My daughter graduated from college last week, two of them with a bachelor's degree. They didn't get to go get their apartment. They had to come home with a bachelor's degree.
Oh, yes.
Because to rent an apartment is nearly $2,000 a month. You got to get a job. Back when I was growing up, you had a bachelor's degree, you were the cream of the crop. Not so much now. All of this is going to, I think this is what folks in Congress have to realize, is that all of these things, affordability of education, the number of children to a parent, what they're paying for health care now, can they get into college, what kind of school they're going to in elementary school. Are we taking all the money out of these schools and buying with these vouchers and buying pianos and ski trips? Are we making sure that these schools are good? Are we making extracurricular activities and development for these? Because all of this is going to play into what is mom making now? Is she able to save now? Once they get to college and they get out, can they afford a house? Is there an availability of jobs or training for those that didn't go to college and went to trade school? Are there jobs out there to where they can keep up with a fast-paced, fast-growing economy? Because if Congress isn't making the right decisions about everything in that pipeline,
Right.
you're going to fail and have an unanswerable question when it comes to Social Security, because all of that is what determines what this is. Like taxes is a big chunk of that pipeline. Instead of giving the big cuts to the rich folks that don't need it, or somebody that won't turn over their tax records, hasn't paid any taxes. Let's tell the truth. Let's just tell the truth.
That's
we
right.
don't get to do that. But instead of rewarding bad behavior and allowing folks to get away with stuff, if everybody paid their fair share, you can address some of this issue with what is our duty, and that's to take care of the folks that this is. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. For all of the Bible folks out there, the laborer is worthy of his hire. You don't muzzle the ox that treads out the corn. Let's get to it. These folks have treaded the field for us, and shame on us. Shame on any congressman. Shame on any president, any senator that don't see our fundamental duty to people who have built this nation. It wasn't us. We're still building. It was them. Whether they were driving a street sweeper, setting out cones on the highway at night to expand freeways or bridges, teaching at an elementary school, or the lunch lady with the hair cap on that's asking you, do you want mashed potatoes or corn?
Right.
She should be appreciated. And her social involvement her social should be secure. And that's our duty. And
Absolutely.
I could talk about that for Kathleen. That keeps me up at night.
I believe it 100%.
From my heart,
I would
it keeps
echo
me
that.
up.
Yes,
Keeps me up at night.
because I hear the stories, and it is really heartbreaking when you understand that folks are really petrified because they just don't know if this money is going to last them for their lifetime. And as you said, lives are being lived longer. People are living longer. We have great, healthcare, generally speaking, in this country, if there's access to it. And so, that money needs to be stretched. And I always think of this issue or these issues in the context of your mother and my mother, because, these ladies worked for many years, and, they really need to be rewarded and be secure, right?
Absolutely.
And so just to personalize it, I have your mom and my mom in mind when we talk about this. But we're going to leave it there for today. I know we could talk about this further. And like I said, a lot of these issues are interconnected. So this is going to come back up over and over again. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. Whether you join us on YouTube or on Spotify, we appreciate you tuning in. And we will see you for another episode of The Challenge We Face with Quacy Smith. Bye-bye.